The Stelvio is Alfa's debut SUV, and it's not half bad for a first try. For Alfa Romeo to build an SUV is one thing, for it to be named after Italy's most famous mountain pass is altogether another. The Stelvio needed to be good. Happily, it is. Like the competent Giulia and excellent Giulia Quadrifoglio, the Stelvio is a significant step up in quality from anything else Alfa has produced in the past 30 years. It looks nice, it drives better than any of its closest rivals, and it's one of the safest cars on the road. What's more, it's probably the only truly interesting SUV on the market. It's not even that expensive. So what are the downsides? Well, Alfa Romeo doesn't have the best reputation for reliability. We've had no problems with the cars we've borrowed, but other motoring titles have grumbled about their broken down Giulias. In fact, the only customer Giulia we've seen near our office in Victoria was on the back of a tow truck, and if you're after real performance, you'll have to wait for the Quadrifoglio version arriving next year. We adore the terrific Giulia Quadrifoglio, and we're particularly excited about the speedy Stelvio's rumoured 4-second 0.62 mph time. The Stelvio Quadrifoglio will be a powerful car with commensurate prices. Then there's the competition. The bloated, distended midsize SUV market is heaving with choice, including several Korean models that cost less to buy and run. Plus, many families would realistically be better off in an estate. If you were thinking rationally, you'd go for a Skoda Superb, or maybe a Seat Leon Experience. But you're not thinking rationally. You're 6 paragraphs into an Alfa review. For those who want a big family crossover but also some sort of emotional connection with their car, the Stelvio is going to be hard to beat. This finally is an SUV you can buy with your heart, as well as your head. Space 710 adequate across the board. The Stelvio has a slightly smaller boot than its closest rivals, but in real terms it's large enough for most family duties. There's no lip to overcome when loading shopping, and the boot floor itself is at bumper height, making it a practical choice for owners of less athletic dogs. The space, while lacking somewhat in straps and hooks to secure cumbersome cargo, is also a pleasingly square shape. Rear passengers in the Stelvio will be pretty happy with a lot. Head height is reasonable, and tall people will generally be happy behind one another, though a driver over 62 might cause some annoyance to someone of similar proportions positioned in the seat behind. It's not the most area of passenger spaces, but paying extra for a sunroof makes little financial sense. Up front, the Stelvio is a ergonomically designed SUV. There's space for clutter, including the customary large bottle in the door bin and oddments around the rest of the cabin. The glove box is particularly compact, however, and is occupied almost entirely by the handbook, and there aren't as many USB charging points as we'd like. Everyone will be reasonably happy. Despite the sporty ride, 2 adults and 3 children should have no complaints on journeys of any length. It's only when you introduce much longer rear passengers to the fray that there will be some conflict surrounding legroom. While the front passenger has plenty of space to scoot forward and make room for the person behind, the driving position doesn't allow quite so much flexibility for the person behind the wheel. As such, 4 adults might find themselves feeling a little cramped on longer journeys. The Stelvio's suspension is what sets it apart from key European rivals. While the setup does make it one of the best cars to drive in its class, the compromise here is ride quality. The whole car follows the contours of the road, making for unsettled progress on Britain's ropier broads, and some potholes make a startlingly bombastic entrance into the cabin. Across the board, the ride quality is good, but the nature of the Stelvio means large diameter alloys which will make the roads feel worse are particularly unwise. Road and wind noise is fine, but rivals deal with both more convincingly. If there's one area where the Germans still beat this Italian, it's refinement at speed. Wood is a nice touch, but otherwise quite ordinary. Probably the most interesting parts of the Alfa's interior are the optional patches of wood, a carbon effect, though these are novel rather than luxurious against a backdrop of ordinary grey plastic. The carbon panels look a tad odd, and the wood that we had in our other test car was like that of a chopping board. It's still more stimulating to look at than most Japanese, Korean or German rivals, though. Everything is pleasingly located and the dashboard is heroically unfussy. The trio of knobs on the transmission tunnel can take some time to get used to, as they're located very close to each other but have wildly different functions. There's a slightly disappointing number of USB points. Wireless charging is all well and good, but not everyone has a compatible smartphone, and anyway, we estimate most families include at least as many devices as people. There aren't many storage spaces in the rear of the car for kids to lose things, either. Easy to drive 710A large SUV with slightly restricted visibility. The Stelvio is a big car, which gives a commanding driving position but also makes urban navigation more difficult. Drivers graduating from a hatchback or smaller family car could struggle to become accustomed to the car's heft, as the Stelvio's extremities are initially problematic to pinpoint from the driver's seat. The large pillars create blind spots all round. These aren't difficult to overcome but are certainly more pronounced than those of smaller rivals. The addition of a reversing camera should help with parking, because rear visibility isn't fantastic. In terms of actual mechanics, the Stelvio shouldn't present any physical challenge. Light steering and straightforward controls mean that it's probably a little easier to maneuver than the large German cars. And on the rare occasions that you need to navigate something slippery, a four-wheel drive Stelvio should make it difficult to get stuck. Alfa has developed a braking system that is designed to produce a consistent, predictable response from the middle pedal. Of course, by overthinking it, they've made brakes that act quite unlike anything else in the segment. You may take a few days to get used to how the Stelvio slows down, though most drivers will enjoy the apparent lack of fade after prolonged heavy braking. Fun to drive 810, the best in its segment. The name sport utility vehicle is almost always misleading. A large car, usually powered by a diesel engine and with a high center of gravity, is rarely what you'd describe as sporty. And in almost all instances, a car described as an SUV is vastly less practical in terms of utility than a similarly priced estate. But by producing a car that is good to drive, comfortable, reasonably roomy and which has a four-wheel drive system, Alfa has come surprisingly close to meeting the brief. I should mention at this point that a Stelvio Quadrifoglio is definitely in the works, and that when it arrives it's expected to have a 0.62 mph time of around 4 seconds. If it's as good as the Giulia Quadrifoglio, it will be excellent. Anyone in search of true performance would do well to wait until the Quadrifoglio arrives, at least so we can see what it's like. The Stelvio's drivetrain is an all-wheel drive system that operates as a rear-wheel drive car under normal conditions, but which can send up to 50% of the torque to the front axle when necessary. There's no way to turn the traction control off in the non-Quadrifoglio Stelvio, but that shouldn't present a problem to most sensible road users. The amount of power supplied by the petrol and diesel engines is generous, not enough to inspire smoky misbehavior, but ample for spirited driving. It's the handling that sets the Stelvio apart. Firm suspension, reminiscent of a well-sorted sports car, follows the contours of the road, while exceptionally quick steering gives a sense of immediacy not found in any other SUV. It obviously isn't as good as the Giulia, but it comes close, losing the magic connection on straight roads but enabling proper, uncompromised fun on twisty ones. I've driven the higher-powered diesel and petrol engines and found neither of them pretty to listen to, but both push enough power to where it's needed. The petrol is more like a conventional performance car, but like most large vehicles the Stelvio is better suited to a diesel. Neither is a bad choice here, and both have characters of their own. Reliability 410. Alfa's reputation is the worst in the business. There's a standard 3-year warranty on the Stelvio, but Alfa Romeo has a pretty poor reputation for build quality. It wasn't a large enough manufacturer to feature in the 2017 JD Power Reliability Survey. This is only Alfa's second significant launch for several years, and we have not heard glowing reports about the Giulia. That said, BMW and Audi both scored badly on aforementioned reliability survey. We hope that Alfa Romeo sells enough cars to be included in the 2018 results, because it's possible that the Germans are in for a surprise. Fuel economy 810. Somewhat frugal, until driven hard with claimed fuel economy figures of between 40 mpg and 60 mpg, the Stelvio isn't the thirstiest machine in its category. These figures don't seem far off what's achievable in normal driving, even with an automatic gearbox. The diesel seems particularly abstemious under ordinary conditions. Put your foot down, though, and those figures plummet. The gear pedals mounted on the steering column are very tempting, and while the engine doesn't produce the sweetest noise, high horsepower variants of both the diesel and the petrol engines reward enthusiastic driving. Affordability 810. In entry-level form, this Alfa Romeo undercuts key rivals on price. Buyers looking for a family SUV are well catered for at every price point, and I'm not going to compare this upmarket Italian car to the cheap and brilliant Korean alternatives, nor cars like the Skoda Kodiaq and Nissan Qashqai, which offer arguably better value for money. The closest rivals are cars like the Jaguar F-Pace, the Mercedes GLC, the BMW X3 and the Porsche Macan. Most of these have slightly higher list prices anyway, but by the time you've configured the car you want, the Alfa Romeo tends to be cheaper. Safety 1010 A 5-star Euro NCAP rating. The Stelvio scored extremely well in Euro NCAP test, its 97% adult occupant protection rating bettered only by the Giulia. It scored around par for the child passenger and pedestrian protection, though fell short of some rivals in terms of safety assistance tech. Euro NCAP said its driver set speed limiter was too complicated to use, something I consider a minor point. The four-wheel drive capabilities of the Stelvio are also worth mentioning as a safety feature. It's no off-roader, but in split-friction situations, half the car on tarmac, the other on wet mud, the powertrain is capable of keeping the car out of trouble. A computer will send drive to the front wheels when necessary, and I found it hard to confuse in normal conditions. Standard spec 810. The base model comes with everything you need. The standard Stelvio trim level comes with a decent sound system, a sat-nav and pretty much all the safety equipment. What's more, it comes with 17-inch alloys, which are probably the sweet spot in terms of ride quality. Working up the range gets you bigger, blingier wheels and increasingly luxurious interiors. Alfa anticipates the second trim level being popular. Alfa's 2.2-litre diesel engine is particularly good, though the petrol delivers a more conventionally sporty experience. Once you start chasing true performance, though, you may find yourself better off waiting for the planned Quadrifoglio version. Our favorite version, Alfa Romeo Stelvio Super, 2.2-litre turbo diesel, 210 horsepower, 38,490 pounds. Options: you should add aluminium shifting paddles on steering column, 275 pounds. Verdict: 810. Alfa Romeo has built a very good car. Like the Giulia, the Stelvio offers a compelling alternative in a market dominated by ordinary German models. There are big question marks over how reliable the Alfa will be, and anyone who wants a true performance SUV will wait for the Quadrifoglio. But for buyers who crave more style than you get from BMW, Audi or Mercedes, or who want real driving pleasure rather than a cumbersome compromise, the Stelvio will be very difficult to beat. For all the latest news, advice and reviews from Telegraph Cars, sign up to our weekly newsletter by entering your email here. AZ Car Finder.